Good morning, church family. Today we continue through our daily Devo series. In yesterday's video, Denise talked about Exodus 19, where God gives a covenant to the people of Israel and they agree to it. And from then on, from Exodus 19 to where we're picking up here in Exodus 32, has been interactions with God and his people of explaining this covenant. In particular, a lot of it is Moses up on Mount Sinai, talking with God and receiving all of these rules of the covenant, rules on priestly orders, sacrifices, and things like that. And so where we're picking up in Exodus 32 is with the people. While Moses is up on Mount Sinai hearing from God about this covenant, hearing how Israel is to maintain this covenant with God, how what their part is to be, we see that during the waiting, during the times where they don't know what Moses is doing up on the mountain, the people of Israel already begin to abandon this covenant. So let's read real quickly and discuss. We pick up in Exodus chapter 32, verses 1 through 6. Now when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people assembled about Aaron and said to him, "Come, make us a god who will go before us. For this Moses, the man who brought us from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." Aaron said to them, "Tear off the gold rings which are in the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." Then all the people tore off the gold rings which were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. He took this from their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool and made it into a molten calf. And they said, "This is your God, O Israel, who brought you up from the land of Egypt." Now when Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord." So the next day they rose early and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and to drink and rose up to play. So what we see here is Moses has been up on Mount Sinai, and we know at the end, Moses was up at Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights. And because of this great length of time, the people begin to lose faith. They begin to lose patience. And we see that what it says is because he was delayed, they began to demand an idol. It was because of the delay. It was because of the waiting. It's because of the uncertainty, the lack of control. They came to Aaron and said, "You need to forge us a God. One that fits in our timing. One that fits in our schedule. One which we have a little bit more visual of. It's easier to believe, it's easier to see, and it's easier to control." And they come to Aaron saying, "For you make us something. You make us a lesser God." And they didn't care that it was a lesser God. They didn't care that it was man-made. They just wanted this image, this idol that was under their control instead of this God that would require them to wait, or this God which they couldn't see. And so the challenge is where do we see ourselves carrying on the same behavior? Because what happens is Aaron, he caves in and he listens to the people and he asks them to bring gold items, gold earrings, gold jewelry, so that he forges them a golden calf. And we see that once they see this idol, they begin to give credit to this idol for things only God did. They're beginning to say, "Hey, this idol, this calf, this was the God that rescued us. This was the God that saved us from Egypt. This is the God that provides." And they begin to provide it worship that only God was deserving. They build an altar. They begin to give sacrifices. They begin to use practices that they used to honor God instead to honor this idol. They worshiped, they gave sacrifices, did all these things that only God was deserving of for this idol. And we do the same thing. And no, none of us have a golden calf, but we do have idols. We do have things that we trust in because it's easier to control. We have things that we put our faith in because that's a visual I can understand, and God isn't always. And we oftentimes can choose to seek out an idol that's in our grasp instead of resting in the God that's beyond us, and instead of really having faith and trust in him. And whether that idol be money, and I want to be able to put my confidence in money because I can try to control my wealth. I can work hard to get more wealth. I know where it goes. I know where it comes from. And we deceive ourselves that we have control in that area. Or whether it be a societal status and earning and improving and performing, or whether it be items, goods, or friends, we find things to define ourselves by. We find lesser gods, created things that can never amount to the same glory as the Creator and can never fulfill us like the Creator. And we pursue it because we're tired of waiting and we're tired of not being in control. And so I challenge this church family. Where are the areas that we're getting sick of God's delays? We're getting sick of not knowing. Thus, we're settling for lesser things instead of resting in God faithfully. So church family, I challenge us to always be on the lookout for ways that we forge for ourselves lesser gods and where we misplace the worship and the commitment that should be given to God and put it in the wrong things. Have a great day, church family.